measurement. Okay, so we're going to start with linear measurement, which is the measurement of straight lines. So hopefully you'll all remember that 1 kilometre is equal to, I'm just going to highlight it there, we've got 1 kilometre is equal to 1,000 metres, 1 metre is equal to 100 centimetres, and 1 centimetre is equal to 10 millimetres. So we're going to use this to fill in this little conversion diagram here. So if I was going from kilometres to metres, if I'm starting from the kilometres number, I have only a number 1, and when I go to metres it turns into 1,000, so I know it's going to get bigger, and therefore I'm going to multiply if I start with kilometres and go to metres, because I want it to get bigger. So I'm going to be timesing it by 1,000. If I was doing the reverse, if I started from metres, so here I'm starting over here in my metres number and I'm going to kilometres, then I know the number's going to get smaller. If I had just the 1 kilometre, then I'm going to start with 1,000 metres, and that number's going to reduce down to a 1. So it's going to get smaller. So therefore, I'm going to, and I'll just take those highlights off, I'm going to be dividing when I go backwards by that 1,000. Likewise, when I carry on along the line, so if I'm going from metres to centimetres, I know my number's going to get bigger, so therefore I'm going to times by that 100. And if I started with centimetres, going backwards to metres, I'm going to get smaller, so I divide by 100. Likewise for the last one, the conversion is 10. So if I'm going from centimetres to millimetres, my number will get bigger, so I'll times by 10. And if I'm going in the opposite direction, I'm going to divide by 10. Okay, so let's try a few of these. The other thing you should know, okay, so what units should you use? The units of measurement that you should use for any measurement depends on what it is you're measuring, and therefore what's appropriate for the size of that object. So if I was measuring the distance between towns, I'm going to use kilometres, because obviously that's a rational thing to do. If I'm measuring a house, most of us kind of think of it in metres, but builders will actually use millimetres. So any building plans, they'll always quote measurements in millimetres, and so on. So just use what's logical. So if you've measured something in a different unit than what, if you get an outrageously large number in your answer, then you should probably convert it to something more sensible. Right, so let's convert these examples. So first of all, we're going to convert 2.4 kilometres to metres. So if I'm starting with kilometres and I'm going to metres, I know my number's going to get bigger, so that's going to prompt me to multiply. And the conversion from kilometres to metres was 1,000, okay? So if we were going to do this one, my answer would be 2.4. I'm going to times it by that 1,000 to make it bigger. If you had to do this mentally, people always struggle with the mental. Look at the number of zeros. So here I've got 3 zeros, which means I'm going to move that decimal 3 places. So starting from a 2.4, if I move that decimal 3 places, 1, 2, 3, it's going to go to here, which means I'm going to fill in the gaps with zeros. So it's going to give me an answer of 2,400 metres. Don't forget to put your units on, because you'll get penalised in a test if you don't record your units. When I do the next one, I'm starting from millimetres and I'm going to centimetres. So in this case, I'm going to expect my answer to get smaller, because there's fewer centimetres. I need 10 millimetres to make 1 centimetre. So I know as I go to centimetres, my number's going to get smaller by a factor of 10. So I'm going to write down the initial number they've given me, 3,122. I know my answer is going to get smaller, so I'm going to divide by 10. So again, mentally, I've got 1 0, so I'm moving my decimal 1 spot. In this number, my decimal, if there's none, is technically at the end. So when I move it 1 spot, sorry, I'll try and get that line to curve for you. When I move that decimal 1 spot, it's going to go in there, which will give me an answer of 312.2 centimetres. Okay, and the next one, I've got 4,120 millimetres, and now I'm going to metres. So this time I'm kind of jumping 2 spots. I'm bypassing centimetres altogether, and I'm going to metres. So if I looked at my little table, starting from millimetres, and I'll just get a highlighter going here, starting from millimetres and going to metres means I'm jumping all the way along here. So I could just look at the zeros here and go, well, altogether I'm going to have 1, 2, 3 zeros. So I'm going to be moving my decimal, I'm going to be dividing by 1,000 therefore, or moving my decimal 3 places. I'll just remove these highlights so your notes don't get crazy. So you can do it in one step. However, if you were doing this, say, on an older exam or in a mental section of a test, most people will sometimes get a little bit muddled. So sometimes it's easier to go one step at a time. So if I started with my original number, to go from millimetres to centimetres, I know I'm going to divide by 10, which has 1 0, so I know I'd be moving my decimal 1 spot. That puts me in centimetres. To go from centimetres to metres, I know I'm going to divide by 100, and 100 has 2 zeros, so I'm going to move my decimal 2 more spots. And so you can just do it 2 steps if you like. So I've done that all in one hit, but I've talked you through it separately. So we're going to wind up with an answer of 4.120 metres. Now finally, in the last one, I've got 4.3 metres, and I want to convert those to millimetres. So I'm going to be getting very much bigger. I'm going to be doing the opposite as to what I was in the previous question. I'm now going to be going up by 1,000. So if we looked at our table again here, now I'm starting with metres and I'm going to millimetres. So I'm going up. First I'm going to times by 100, then times by another 10, or I can think of it as just timesing by 1,000 altogether. So when I do this one, I would write down my 4.3. If I was doing it mentally, timesing it by 100 will convert me to centimetres, timesing it by another 10 would give me the millimetres. So altogether, I'm timesing it by 1,000, and I will wind up with, I'm going to fill these gaps in with my zeros effectively. So I'm going to wind up with, and I'll just tidy that number up so you can read it, and you're going to wind up with 4,300 millimetres. Okay. Next we'll do some perimeter questions, but I'll put it in a separate video.